I woke up to the sound of a deadbolt sliding shut. Metal. Final. Wrong. My wrists were already sore from the rope. My wife's breathing was ragged beside me in the dark. Then, our only son's voice floated down the basement stairs. Too calm. Too cold. "Don't worry," he called. "I'll come back when I've decided what to do with you." The single light bulb flicked off. We were alone. Trapped. My wife started to sob. I didn't. Because what my son didn't know was that I had a secret built into this house long before he was born. And tonight, it might be the only reason we survived. My name is Edward Cole. I'm 64 years old. 2 weeks ago, my own son locked my wife and me in our basement. He thought we were powerless. He didn't know I'd spent years preparing for the day someone tried to destroy our family from the inside. You don't raise a monster on purpose. You don't hold a newborn in your arms and think, one day this child will look at me like I'm in the way. No. You raise a child with scraped knees, birthday candles, and late-night homework. You tell them stories. You patch their jackets. You give them your last dollar without blinking. And somewhere along the way, if you're not careful, you teach them they can take without giving anything back. Our son's name is Daniel. He's 31. Growing up, he was bright, quick with numbers, quiet in class. Teachers loved him. He used to fall asleep on the couch with his head on my lap while I explained how interest worked and why you should never ignore fine print. "I'll be rich one day," he'd say, smiling. "Then I'll take care of you and Mom." I believed him. My wife, Margaret, was softer than me. She saw the best in everyone, especially him. When he crashed his first car, she said, "He's young, Eddie. He'll learn." When he dropped out of college, she said, "He just needs time to figure out what he wants." When he started coming around with get-rich-quick schemes and investments, she said, "He's trying. That counts for something." I wanted to believe that too. Then the money started disappearing. It was small at first. A missing check, an extra withdrawal, a strange charge tucked into the bank statement like a bad card in a good deck. "Must be a bank error," Daniel said, shrugging. "I'll help you call them." He was so confident, so casual, that I questioned my own memory. Then Margaret's bracelet went missing, the one her mother left her. We turned the house upside down. "I haven't seen it," Daniel said, eyes not quite meeting ours. A week later, I saw one just like it on a woman's wrist in a photo on his social media feed. "Where'd she get that?" I asked. "She bought it," he said. Something in his voice changed that day, harder, meaner. "Dad, you're getting forgetful," he added. "You misplace things. It happens at your age." I let it go. I shouldn't have. The turning point came when I had a heart scare, not a full heart attack, just a warning shot, chest tightness, a night in the hospital, a doctor telling me to slow down. I'd spent 4 decades as an electrician, then a contractor. I built half the houses in this county, or it felt like it. I knew every beam and nail in my own home. What Daniel didn't know was that during the recession, when people were losing jobs left and right, I'd done something most fathers don't. I'd built more than walls in that house. I'd built a contingency plan, a hidden crawl space behind the basement wall, accessible from a panel no one knew existed but me, a place to store emergency cash, documents, and a satellite phone I hoped I'd never need. I never told Margaret. I never told Daniel, not because I didn't trust her, but because I didn't trust the world. After the hospital scare, I updated the cash, updated the supplies, updated the phone. That was my secret. I never imagined I'd need it because of my own son. When Daniel found out I had life insurance and a decent retirement fund, something in him changed. The visits became more frequent, but shorter. The conversations became more pointed. "You should put the house in my name," he said one afternoon, "in case something happens." "What would happen?" I asked. "You're not getting younger," he replied. Margaret scolded him. "Dan, that's not funny." He apologized. He always apologized. But apologies don't erase patterns. Then, one rainy Thursday night, he showed up with paperwork. "This is just to make things smoother," he said, sliding the documents across the table. "If something happens to you, the house can go straight to me. No probate, no hassle." I read every line. Old habit. Hidden in the stacked pages was a clause transferring ownership immediately. Not after death, not in case of illness. Immediately. My chest turned cold. "Did you read this?" I asked him. Of course, he said, and my lawyer did too. Fire your lawyer, I replied, standing up, and get out of my house. His expression dropped. The mask slipped. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. Eddie, sit down. Dan, maybe don't push. It's my house, I said. No signatures are changing that today. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Then he left, slamming the door so hard a picture frame fell. Margaret cried that night. That's our son, she whispered. He's just lost. I wanted to believe her. 2 days later, someone jimmied the lock on the garage. Nothing was taken, but someone had tried to get in. I reinforced the locks, checked the alarms, reviewed the security camera. It was Daniel, standing there, looking at the house like it was already his. When he came by the next Sunday, I confronted him. I saw the footage, I said. The garage. He didn't even pretend this time. Why are you making this so difficult? He asked. You don't need all this space. I could sell it, pay off my debts, start over. Margaret stepped between us. Dan, listen to yourself. He glared at her. I'm your son, he said. It's going to be mine anyway. Why not now, while it can actually help someone? You're not someone, I said quietly. You're family. That's different. And if you keep treating us like assets, you're going to lose more than a house. The last time we saw him before everything snapped, he stood in the doorway and said, You're going to regret this, Dad. I didn't know how right he was. 2 weeks later, he showed up with pizza and a smile. No hard feelings, he said. Let's just have dinner. Margaret was so relieved she almost cried. We ate. We talked about nothing. She laughed. I let myself relax, just a little. Then the room started to tilt. My tongue felt thick. Margaret's glass slipped from her fingers and shattered. What did you... I slurred. Daniel watched us calmly as we staggered, the edges of the world going soft. He stepped forward and caught Margaret as she collapsed. It's just something to help you sleep, he said. Don't fight it. The last thing I heard before everything went black was the sound of our basement door opening. We woke up on the cold concrete floor. My head pounded. My wrists were bound with rope. Margaret's hands, too. The basement door at the top of the stairs was closed. I tried to stand. Pain shot through my knees. Age is not kind on cement. Then we heard his footsteps. The bolt slid shut. Daniel, Margaret cried. Let us out. This isn't funny. He didn't laugh. Most people don't get to decide how their parents go, he said through the door. I'm just accelerating the process. Open the door, I growled. He ignored me. The house is in your name, he continued. You've got no debt, no mortgage, no liens, but that will change if I don't get control before you do something stupid with it. You drugged us? I demanded. Locked us in our own basement for a house? For a chance, he snapped. For once in my life, a chance to not drown. And your plan is to kill us? I asked, voice low. I haven't decided yet, he said. That's why you're still breathing. His steps retreated, the sound of him walking away from his own parents. Margaret sobbed beside me. This isn't him, she whispered. He's not like this. He's not... Yes, I said quietly, heartbreaking. He is. I waited until I couldn't hear his footsteps anymore. Then I rolled onto my side, awkward, clumsy, fingers numb from the rope. Eddie, what are you doing? Margaret whispered. I looked at the far basement wall, at the shelving, at the drywall I had installed myself 30 years ago, counting the studs, counting the panels. There's something he doesn't know, I said. She blinked. What? The house, I murmured, forcing myself to breathe slowly. She belonged to me long before she ever belonged to him, and I built her with a secret he never found. Margaret stared at me, tears streaking her cheeks. What secret? I shifted my body an inch at a time toward the wall. The one, I said, feeling for the faint seam in the drywall. That might be the difference between dying down here. My fingers finally brushed against it. The hidden notch. And walking back up those stairs on our own terms. The notch in the wall was almost invisible, just a thin break in the paint where the drywall met a hidden hinge. I had installed it 30 years ago, long before Margaret or I imagined needing it. She watched me inch toward it, wrists tied, breathing shaky. Eddie, what is that? She whispered. A chance, I murmured. Daniel had no idea about this space. He didn't grow up in this house. We bought it after he went to college, the one he dropped out of without warning. He had no memories here, no childhood secrets, no map of where every pipe, stud, and beam lived. But I did. I pressed my shoulder against the panel and pushed. Nothing. I tried again, harder. The faintest crack appeared. Margaret gasped softly. "Is that a door?" "It's a panel," I said. "Leads to a crawl space behind the foundation." "But why?" "Because when you build houses for a living," I said, gritting my teeth as I pushed again, "you learn that the world isn't always safe, and sometimes being prepared is the only thing that keeps you alive." The panel gave an inch, but the ropes were cutting into my wrists, slowing me down. "Margaret," I whispered, "I need you to get closer." She scooted across the floor, wincing as the concrete scraped her knees. "What do I do?" she asked. "Lean your weight against it. Push with your shoulder." She pressed into the panel beside me. We pushed together. The drywall creaked, then pop. A thin triangular gap opened, just enough to wedge fingers inside. I slipped my bound hands into the space and braced myself. "One more," I whispered. We pushed. The panel swung inward with a hollow thump, revealing a narrow, dark cavity filled with dust and boxes I'd hidden long ago. Margaret stared. "You built all this?" "Sometimes paranoia looks a lot like preparation," I muttered. Inside the space was the emergency kit, a metal box the size of a toolbox. But first, the ropes. I turned so my hands were inside the panel, feeling along the shelf's edge. There, a rusted bolt sticking out of a board. Perfect. I hooked the rope against it and began sawing back and forth, slow, painful, but steady. Margaret kept watch on the stairs. Every creak in the house above made her flinch. "Do you think," she whispered, "he'll come back?" "Oh, he's coming back," I said. "He's deciding what to do with us, and that's the part that scares me." The rope began to fray. Then, with a snap, my hands came free. Blood rushed back into my wrists in burning waves. "Your turn," I said. She held her wrists out, trembling. I worked quickly using the bolt. Her rope snapped a few minutes later. Margaret exhaled in relief, rubbing her bruised wrists. "Now what?" she asked. I reached into the crawl space and pulled out the metal box. Inside, flashlight, cash, duplicate house keys, a utility knife, batteries, bottled water, documents, and a satellite. Phone. Daniel had disconnected the house Wi-Fi, disabled the landlines, probably smashed our cell phones too. But the satellite phone, he didn't know it existed. Margaret stared at it. "Call the police," she said urgently. "Right now." I didn't move. "Eddie," she pressed, "call them." "I want to," I said quietly. "But think, if Daniel hears sirens before we get out of here, what do you think he'll do?" Her face crumpled. "You think he'd hurt us? He drugged us, tied us up, locked us in the basement, and he's desperate. Desperate people do terrible things." She swallowed hard. "So we need to get out first," I said. "Then call." "But how?" she whispered. I looked up the staircase. Old wood, old lock, windows too high to reach without a ladder. "He locked the door from the outside," I said, "but locks work both ways." I opened the utility knife and walked to the workbench. It was bolted down. Daniel hadn't thought to move it. Underneath the bench was my old toolbox. Most tools were gone, but one remained, a flathead screwdriver. I picked it up. "Good," I murmured. I motioned to Margaret. "Stay behind me." We crept up the stairs, both of us wincing when one of the old steps groaned loudly. I paused halfway up, listened. The house above was quiet, too quiet. At the top of the stairs, the basement door loomed, dark and heavy. I pressed my ear to it. Nothing. I slid the flathead into the corner of the door jamb, feeling for the latch mechanism. Margaret held her breath. I twisted. The mechanism resisted. I twisted harder. Metal scraped. Then, a faint click. The latch moved. We froze as footsteps thumped above us. Daniel, he wasn't far. Maybe the hallway. Maybe the kitchen. Margaret's hand flew to her mouth. I held a finger to my lips. We waited, listening. He moved past the basement door, pacing. I could hear him muttering to himself. They didn't give me a choice. They forced my hand. It's not my fault." He sounded frantic, panicked, unraveling, and then His phone rang. He answered immediately. Yeah, it's me. No, not yet. I will. I said I will. Stop rushing me. He slammed the phone against something. Margaret's eyes widened. He's working with someone, she whispered. And they're pushing him, I said quietly, which meant he was even more dangerous than we thought. Daniel moved into the living room, farther from the basement. This was our window. I twisted the screwdriver again. Another click. The door cracked open a half-inch. Margaret squeezed my arm. Eddie. I pushed the door open slowly, each inch revealing more of the hallway. Empty. We slipped out. The kitchen light was on. Daniel's shadow moved across the counter. He was pacing again, talking to himself. We leave now? I whispered. Margaret nodded. We crept toward the back door, staying in the shadows. But just as I closed my fingers around the doorknob, the floorboard beneath me let out a sharp creak. Daniel froze mid-step. Dad? He called suddenly. We didn't move. Silence. Then a cold shift in his tone. I know you're out. Margaret grabbed my arm, terrified. There was no running now. Daniel appeared at the kitchen entrance, face flushed, eyes wild. He stared at us. You shouldn't have done that, he said quietly. You really shouldn't have. I stepped in front of Margaret. Daniel, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You need help. We can work through this. No, he snapped. I need what's mine. He lunged toward us, and that's when the house alarm suddenly screamed to life. All three of us jolted. Daniel's face twisted in confusion. What? I disabled that. He hadn't. He'd disabled the Wi-Fi connected system. Not the backup hardwired alarm I installed 20 years ago. The siren blared, lights flashed. Daniel panicked. What did you do? I didn't answer. I grabbed Margaret's hand. Run! Because now the police would be on their way. But Daniel wasn't ready to let us go. He grabbed something off the counter, something metallic, and charged after us. You're not leaving me with nothing, Margaret screamed. I pulled her toward the back door, but Daniel was closing in. He was faster, stronger, and he was desperate, very desperate. As we burst into the night air, I realized something chilling. He wasn't chasing us to stop us. He was chasing us because he already decided what he was going to do. Cold night air slammed into us as we burst out the back door, the house alarm shrieking behind us like a warning siren from another world. Margaret stumbled on the porch steps, and I caught her arm before she fell. Go! I shouted. But Daniel was already in the doorway, silhouetted against the flashing red alarm lights, an iron fireplace poker clenched in his fist. His eyes, God help me, were not the eyes of my son. They were the eyes of a cornered animal. Stop! He roared. You don't get to leave, not after everything. We ran across the yard, slipping in wet grass, heading for the tree line where the old tool shed stood. Margaret's breath came in sharp gasps. Eddie, he's right behind us. I know, I panted. Just keep moving. Daniel tore across the yard like he was fueled by something beyond rage. You owe me, he screamed. You owe me everything. His voice cracked, breaking into something raw and terrifying. We reached the shed, but its door was padlocked from the outside. I never thought I'd need it unlocked in an emergency. I spun around. Daniel was closing fast. No escape, he growled. I'm taking what's mine. Daniel, listen, I yelled, raising my hands. This isn't you. Shut up, he snapped, voice shaking. You don't get to talk, not now. He swung the iron poker wildly. I yanked Margaret aside as it smashed into the shed door with a metallic crack that echoed through the trees. Dan, Margaret cried out, you're scaring me. He froze for a split second, her voice piercing through his rage. And for the briefest moment, I saw the boy he used to be. Then something in him twisted. He clenched his jaw and muttered, They warned me you'd say things like that. My blood ran cold. They? I repeated. Who's they? Daniel's breathing turned erratic. You think I just woke up one day and decided to do this? He snarled. You think I wanted this? No, they made me. They said if I didn't bring them something worth money, they'd come after me. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just desperation, it was blackmail. Who, Daniel? I pressed. Who threatened you? His glare flickered, fear breaking through the anger. I owe money, Dad, he shouted, voice cracking. Real money, to people you don't just... Walk away from. You think I wanted to do this? You think I wanted to hurt you? Margaret sobbed. Oh my God. Daniel. He pointed the poker at me like a knife. They said if I didn't give them collateral, they'd take my life. And you're the only thing I have worth anything. The words cut straight through me. He didn't want his parents. He wanted his parents' assets. You think killing us fixes that? I asked quietly. No, he shouted. Not killing. I just need control of the house, the insurance, something I can give them before they come for me. A car engine rumbled in the distance. Daniel's head snapped toward the sound. Blue and red lights flickered through the trees. The police. The alarm had worked. No, 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 Daniel screamed. You called them? You called them? I didn't, I said. But I installed a backup hardwired system you didn't know about. His face twisted with fury. You old piece of... He lunged. I shoved Margaret away. Daniel slammed into me, the poker scraping my shoulder. Pain shot down my arm, but adrenaline kept me grounded. We grappled, feet slipping in mud. He was younger, faster, more desperate, but years of manual labor gave me strength he didn't expect. Dad, let go, he screamed. No, I growled. I'm not letting you destroy yourself. Police sirens grew louder. Daniel's eyes darted wildly. They'll arrest me, he breathed. I can't go to prison. They'll kill me. Dad, please, help me. He wasn't a monster anymore. He was a terrified boy begging for a way out. Talk to us, I said, voice shaking. We can fix this, together. No, he shrieked. You're lying. You always lied. You never helped me. That's not true, Margaret cried out. We would have helped you. We always would. Daniel's grip tightened on the poker. I can't go to jail, he whispered. I can't. Then he raised the weapon to strike, and that's when a spotlight hit us, bright, blinding. Drop it, a police officer shouted. Drop the weapon now. Daniel froze, struck between running, fighting, and surrendering. Daniel, I said, barely able to breathe. This is your last line. Don't cross it. His eyes brimmed with tears, rage, and terror. The poker slipped from his fingers, hitting the ground with a dull thud. He dropped to his knees, hands shaking, chest heaving, face crumbling. I didn't mean to, he whispered. I didn't. Officers rushed in, tackling him, cuffing him as he sobbed. Margaret collapsed into me, shaking. I held her tight, eyes locked on our son, our boy, being dragged away under flashing lights. He looked back once, eyes broken. Dad, he choked out, I'm sorry. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I believed him. The flashing lights faded hours ago, but their echo still pulsed in our walls. Margaret and I sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around untouched mugs of tea, trying to breathe in a house that suddenly felt unfamiliar. Every corner carried the ghost of what almost happened. Every step upstairs this felt like stepping on broken glass. The police had asked their questions. We answered what we could. Greg, the neighbor, offered to stay with us for the night. We said no. This was our home. We needed to face it alone. Around 3 a.m., the phone rang. It was the officer who'd taken Daniel into custody. Mr. Cole, he said, your son told us everything. He named the people he owed money to. We've passed their names to the county task force. You'll be safe. Safe. The word felt heavy. Ugly? Too late. What happens to him? I asked. He's being charged, but he's also being evaluated. He's not well. There's a chance the court may push for treatment instead of prison. I thanked him and hung up. Margaret placed her hand over mine. He's sick, Eddie, she whispered. He wasn't thinking like our boy. I stared at the floor. I know, I said, but sickness doesn't erase what he did. She wiped her eyes. It doesn't, she said softly, but it explains it. We sat in silence, listening to the house settle in the early morning chill. A house we almost died in. A house he tried to take. A house I had built to protect us. From everything except the one person I never imagined would hurt us. Around dawn, the phone buzzed again. This time, a recorded message from the county jail. Daniel's voice shaking. Dad, Mom, I know you hate me. I know I deserve it. But I want you to know I didn't plan to... I was scared. I messed up. I'm sorry. If you never want to see me again, I understand. Margaret broke. Her quiet sobs filled the room like a confession. I listened to the message twice, then a third time. Hate him? No. I could never. But trust him again? That was a road with no name. As the sun rose, filling the kitchen with pale gold light, I finally spoke. Margaret, I said quietly, we visit him. Not today, not tomorrow, but when we're strong enough. She nodded, wiping her cheeks. And until then, she whispered, I looked toward the basement door. The one he locked, the one we escaped, the one that tried to bury us. We rebuild, I said. Not the house, us. And for the first time since the night began, I felt like we might. Together.